What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, April 2nd, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is noon Eastern time here in the United States. I wanted to update you guys on the latest situation in Iran. So, U.S. military planners are preparing potential ground operations inside Iran, including a possible assault on Karg Island, the country's main oil export hub, and a separate mission to seize enriched uranium, with plans awaiting approval from President Trump, according to sources who told The Atlantic all of this. So, huge news. Okay, multiple sources, more sources now saying that U.S. military planners and Trump are preparing a ground operation. It looks like they already have plans and they're just waiting for Trump to select one. And the U.S. Department of Defense has given President Trump a plan to seize nearly 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium from at least one nuclear site in Iran, which would involve flying in excavation equipment and building a runway for cargo planes to take the radioactive material out, according to two people familiar with the matter who spoke to the Washington Post. Wow, very interesting. And the U.S. and Israel have coordinated major operations that are set to take place in the coming days, according to Con News. So, in the coming days, and Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson says that Trump's statement on Iran requesting a ceasefire was false. Okay, so you know how Trump said that Iran was begging for a ceasefire? Well, Iran is saying that that's not true. And the Iranian government believes it is in a strong position in the war and does not have to give in to America's diplomatic demands. So very, very interesting. Okay, so no end in sight, guys. No end in sight. Iran is not afraid of the U.S. And multiple U.S. intelligence agencies have assessed in recent days that the Iranian government is not currently willing to engage in substantial negotiations over ending the war, according to U.S. officials. And according to a statement from Iran's supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, despite reports that U.S.-Iran talks are underway, Iran maintains that it will continue fighting both Israel and the U.S. Okay, and he said something about Zionism and all this crap, but he basically made a post on social media saying that they're going to continue to fight the U.S. and Israel. And an Iranian senior source told Reuters that no discussions have been conducted with the U.S. through mediators for any kind of ceasefire. Wow. So Iran is flat out denying what Trump has been saying about negotiations being underway. Like I said, that was most likely Trump trying to calm down the markets, the stock market, okay? And what was crazy is after Trump's speech last night, immediately, just within like 30 minutes, oil prices went up like $5 a barrel, and the stock futures dropped 500 points. So there's no end in sight. The war is going to continue going. And Vance, the vice president, delivered a stern message that Trump is impatient and warned of escalating pressure on Iranian infrastructure unless Tehran agrees to a deal. And what's interesting is that Vance was adamantly against the war, so for Vance to now be saying stuff like this is pretty serious. And the head of the International Energy Agency says the current energy crisis is worse than the 1970s and the 2022 Russian gas supply disruption combined. Wow. He also warns that April oil supply losses could double March levels. Okay, so if we don't get that Strait of Hormuz open soon, we're going to be paying $6, $7, $8 a gallon for just gasoline, and then diesel will be another $2 on top of that. So everything's going to get more expensive. And Iran's president wrote a letter to the American people saying Iran harbors no enmity towards ordinary Americans, and called portraying Iran as a threat inconsistent with history and current facts, and warns attacks on Iran's infrastructure could have consequences beyond its borders. Wow. And according to the New York Times, citing 2 Pentagon officials, the U.S. plans to increase the amount of A-10 Warthog ground attack aircraft deployed to the Middle East. And if you guys are not aware, A-10s are for close air support. Their primary mission is to support infantry and ground forces by eliminating enemy tanks and armored vehicles. And they fly very low. They kind of do the same thing as an attack helicopter, except attack helicopters are not heavily armored like the A-10 is. The A-10 is like a flying tank. It can take direct hits from high caliber projectiles and even small missiles and still fly. Okay, so it's made to fly into highly guarded airspace and provide close air support for ground forces. So this is a sign that the U.S. is preparing a massive ground invasion of Iran. And what you're looking at here is a live flight tracker, and interestingly, you can see a bunch of aerial refuelers that just went down to the Middle East from the UK, and one of them had to go all the way around Spain because Spain is not allowing the U.S. to fly over its airspace or use its bases and go through the Strait of Gibraltar. And then another one flew straight over France. And then there were also some aerial refuelers that went through the Carpathians, and there was one in the Black Sea, which is not too common. Sorry, this is actually a rivet joint, a recon plane, a British recon plane in the Black Sea. But you can see a bunch of aerial refuelers going down from the UK to the Mediterranean. And in addition to that, we also still have a massive amount of C-17s going back and forth between Israel and Germany. Okay, so they're moving a lot of stuff, as you can see here, all these C-17s going down. So clearly a buildup of equipment preparing for this ground invasion on Iran. And according to the French naval chief, there is currently no evidence that the Strait of Hormuz is mined, calling into question earlier reports primarily from CNN that Iran had begun mining the strait. This comes amidst preparations of a new European coalition of the willing at tackling the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, including the current strait closure. And the U.S. has lost 16 MQ-9 Reaper drones since the war with Iran began, including 2 downed this week near Isfahan, sources told CBS News. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is Matt Hat Jerky. Guys, if you're a beef jerky lover like myself, you got to try Matt Hat Jerky. This is the best beef jerky I've ever had. I personally met the owner of this company at SHOT Show, and he's actually local to Pennsylvania. This company has an interesting story behind it. He founded this company when he was 11 years old. Yeah, that's right, 11 years old. He's now 19, and he makes gourmet beef jerky, the best jerky I've ever had. He's got over a dozen different flavors, and it's all sourced with U.S. beef, so no foreign beef, no nitrates, and no MSG. So it's all natural American beef jerky. And if you use my promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And you got to go to matthatjerky.com. And I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. That's matthatjerky.com. One word, matthatjerky.com. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off your entire order, and the link and the promo code are in the description down below. And Trump told The Telegraph that he is strongly considering pulling the U.S. out of NATO after it has failed to help with the Iran war and closed their airspace. And he also threatened to stop supplying weapons to Ukraine to pressure European allies into helping to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, the Financial Times reported, citing people briefed on the discussions. And now NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who is a close ally of Trump, will be visiting Trump next week after Trump made all these threats to withdraw support for NATO. So tensions between the U.S. and Europe are very high. And the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer made a comment about Iran. He said, "This is not our war. We will not be drawn into the conflict. This is not in our national interest." Wow. So it seems to me like Europe is basically, getting revenge on Trump for the way that Trump kind of ignored them when it came to helping Ukraine. So now they feel like, well, you weren't there to help us last year when we were trying to help Ukraine against Russia, and you were defending Putin and all this. So now they feel like it's their opportunity to sort of do a tit for tat on Trump. Very, very concerning. And Trump made fun of the British Navy. He said, "You don't have a Navy, you're too old," and had aircraft carriers that didn't work. He also commented on NATO. Again, he said, "I was never swayed by NATO. I always knew they were a paper tiger." And Putin knows that too, by the way. And the Australian Prime Minister begged ordinary Australians not to use fuel amid the Hormuz crisis. In his address to the nation speech, he said, quote, "If you can switch to catching the train, bus, or tram, do so." So it's getting really serious in Asia, guys, because they get a lot of their oil from the Middle East. So a lot of the Asian countries are really getting hit hard. South Korea has fuel rationing and driving regulations now. You can only drive your vehicle one time per week, and they have license plate readers that enforce that. Okay, so the situation is getting bad for the Asian countries with the fuel situation. And the United Arab Emirates have asked the UN to provide assistance, including military force, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We know that's not going to happen. A drone struck the British Castrol oil warehouses in Erbil in northern Iraq, causing extensive damage. And U.S. Central Command announced that since the start of Operation Epic Fury, forces have carried out over 13,000 combat flights while striking 12,300 targets throughout Iran. So if you do the math, that's like 400 or so targets per day. That's a lot. That is absolutely insane. And Iran has now launched a total of 89 waves of ballistic missile, cruise missile, and drone strikes against U.S. bases and infrastructure. And the Air Force deployed new EA-37B Compass Call electronic attack aircraft to support military operations against Iran. And Taiwanese authorities are investigating suspected damage to an undersea cable, specifically the Taiwan Matsu No. 3 subsea cable off of Dongyin. So this is right near China in the northern Taiwan Strait. Looks like China damaged another one of their cables. They've already damaged, I believe, at least 2. So very, very concerning. And right now we have a large number of U.S. aerial refuelers over Jordan, Iraq and Syria. Looks like they're returning from combat operations in Iran, and you can actually see one of them flew into Iranian territory not long ago. So we've already heard reports now from the U.S. Central Command that they're now able to overfly Iranian territory with B-52s without having to worry about air defenses because they have such air superiority. Okay, but that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with a live update, probably around 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern Time. So until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.